Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm gonna show you how to replace the starter motor from this Mercedes E-Class with a 2.2 liter diesel engine. So if for example the engine doesn't start, it doesn't crank at all, you might think that you have a bad starter. Most of the people will go ahead and buy a new starter and replace it. However, it might be just because of a bad battery or a bad connection, or the alternator is bad and it cannot charge properly the battery. Therefore, when you try to start the car after 2-3 days, the car doesn't crank. So with that being said, let's see how to replace this starter from this car. So in order to do that, you have to go ahead and remove the intake manifold in order to get access to the starter. So I will have to send you to the video where I showed you step by step how to remove the intake manifold, because it's a long process and you need to know all the details in there. Now, if you look down here, you can see the starter. I already removed the signal wire from the back here because it's required to do so when you take out the intake manifold. From this point, it's kind of simple. You have to disconnect it from the flywheel, from the engine block, because it's connected to the engine block right now. Let's take out this cover. This is the main 12-volt supply. Use a 13mm wrench or socket and open the nut. This guy is coming from the battery, so you have to be careful with it. Do not touch it to the chassis, to the frame of the car. I'm going to actually zip tie this positive 12-volt supply to this rubber cord. It's made of rubber, no problem at all. And now the starter is holding on the engine block by these two big bolts. These bolts are also connecting the transmission on the engine block. One of them is going to be accessible from under the car and one of them from here, or also from under the car, but it's better from here, I think. So I've got my E220 socket in there, as you can see. Now let's try to loosen it. Alright, from this point it comes out by hand. Let's see, so the bolt can come out easier. So in order to take out the first bolt, you're gonna need a E220 socket, short one, and this adjustable ratchet. Okay guys, so under the car, this bolt is holding as well the starter, as you can see. And another thing you want to check here, if for example the starter doesn't work, this is the connection for the 12-volt supply, the positive side of 12-volt supply for the starter. And if this thing is broken or corroded, because it can happen since it's situated under the car, it's exposed to a lot of physical shocks or physical damage. So before going ahead and buying a new starter, it's a good idea to inspect all the wirings and of course check if you have 12-volt supply. You have to prevent rounding up this bolt because it's going to be extremely difficult to remove it after that. Okay, so here it comes. As you can see, the starter begin to crack up, so I'm going to go from above and retrieve it. Alright, so let's see. Here it comes. Right, so I've got here a 12-volt battery, and let's see how this thing works. I connected the negative terminal on the frame, on the body of the starter. And now, once I connect the 12 volts on this connector, which is the switch for the solenoid, we're gonna see the small rotor being pushed on. Now it's ready to spin the flywheel. And in this situation, once you apply as well 12 volts to this connector, the rotor will also spin. And now I'm going to basically act like the ignition switch. I'm going to apply 12-volt supply on this connector as well, while there is already a 12-volt supply on this connector and the ground as well on the body of the starter. Okay, so this is how it goes. So as you can see, this starter motor is using a lot of power, so therefore it's important that your car battery can deliver that power, because one of these motors can use up to 2000 watts. So therefore the cold cranking amps from your car battery are very important to be on spec. It's also important to read very well the symptoms you have. If you have no crank at all, then you've got a problem. Either the connection, the battery, or the starter is bad. So from this point you can go ahead and place the starter back. Let's put some silicone on the threads so the bolt can slide in a lot easier. Okay, so you basically have to tighten first the bolt from the bottom, and then the one from up is gonna go also easier. Okay, now the starter motor is on, is attached. Next, I'm going to lower the car back so I can work on this car. Okay guys, so from this point, let's reconnect back the wires and install back the intake manifold. So if you do this job, you might need a new gasket for the thermostat housing, because in the process of removing the intake manifold, you have to take out this as well. So keep in mind that, purchase everything you need before you do this job. Right, now I'm gonna start the engine and see how it sounds. Okay, so that's how you replace the starter from this car. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And check out the other videos I made about this car. So stay tuned and I will see you in the next video.